I left school at 15 when the unemployment rate was high. Black males between 16 and 25, it was 50%. On the streets, there was a spectre of neo-Nazi violence and police sus laws. These factors would combine to cause riots and rebellions in Handsworth, Birmingham, in Brixton, in London, and Toxteth, Liverpool. And it began a year earlier here in Bristol, in St. Paul's. I didn't get school. Not to blame my teachers. They did the best they could with limited curriculums and resources. 1981 was a momentous year. The Queen, the Pope, and Ronald Reagan were all involved in assassination attempts. As King Charles walked up the aisle with Princess Diana, a multicultural band went #1 in the charts with a record about the fracturing of Britain called Ghost Town. Their lyrics were the soundtrack of my life. On the B-side was a record about racism called Why? Why did you want to hurt me? Did you really want to kill me? Tell me why, tell me why, tell me why. They sang. In January 1981, 13 black teenagers, many like me, born in Britain from Caribbean parents, were killed in a New Cross fire in a suspected racist attack. 13 dead, nothing said, was a cry from the inner cities, which were about to catch a fire. You see, when you grow up, seeing N-word go home, P-word go home, swastikas scrawled on British walls, you question everything. Your soul, your being, your very identity. Travelling to meet my transatlantic family set off my wanderlust. In October 1981, I visited a place that was to become pivotal in my educational journey, the United States of America. My mum had the foresight to take me to see my Uncle Clarence become the first black bishop of Connecticut. A chance meeting with Dr. Martin Luther King and become his educational blessing, changing his life from studying as a vet to one of the highest positions in the clergy. When I returned, I devoured books like Malcolm X when he was behind bars from the library. The music of Bob Marley and my late Rastafarian sister had helped me discover Africa, where my ancestors had been taken to work in plantations in the Americas. Both my parents are from Guyana, formerly British Guiana. Geographically, it's in South America, but politically and culturally, it's very much part of the Caribbean, named from its indigenous people, the Caribs. I spent 15 of my formative years in a white working class suburb in Bristol called Lawrence Weston. There I developed quick wits, loyalty, and a sharp sense of humour, which would serve me well throughout my later life. Plus, there are enough good people around, youth club workers and friends from multiple backgrounds, to keep me away from the constant allure of drugs and crime. And yet, a few years later, I was attacked by racists on a bus stop. I was lucky. I got up. A decade later, another generation became traumatized when Stephen Lawrence was murdered on a bus stop. I was angry, distraught, confused. As I looked at the scars in the mirror, I asked myself, who am I? Black, poor, unskilled, unfulfilled, broken, if not in body, certainly in mind, definitely in spirit. The anger raged inside me and could not be quelled by alcohol or violence. I was a teenage father. I'd accumulated debt to furnish my flat. Needed money to pay bills. College was not a financial option. And as for university, that was simply something other people did. Instead, I moved from factory floor to building site. I didn't even know I'd hit rock bottom until I was labouring underneath the Severn Bridge. The sounds of the cars passed overhead felt like I was trapped in a submarine. And yet, I clung on to the hope I could be someone, that I am somebody. One day at lunchtime, a welder pointed out the biography of Nelson Mandela that I was reading and said, if you're reading that, mate, you really shouldn't be here. For some reason, it kick-started me into action. I decided that there was going to be no more miseducation, and I would only have eyes for Mrs. Education. For I discovered in my history and my heritage lay the path to my re-education. You see, I decided and I discovered that it's never too late to learn, never too late to pick up a new skill or talent. If you've been written off or think you're a failure, think again. We second chances have so much to offer, maturing like the finest of my favourite red wines. I applied as a positive action trainee housing officer in Hartcliffe, South Bristol. I remember the first time I used a photocopier. The young lady smiled and showed me how it worked, with kindness and without judgment. She was one of the first of many to believe in me. As I went on my educational path, and along with on-the-job training and specialist courses, I achieved my first housing qualification. I got a job at Bristol City Council. I soaked up every bit of learning that I could. I rose quickly through the ranks, from benefit clerk to a qualities manager, where I worked on the findings from Lord Macpherson's report into the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. Crucial in my reinvention were vocational courses that unlocked my hidden talents. I gained qualifications in coaching, counselling, tutor training, and management. When I left, after 18 years service, after being made redundant, I'd risen from trainee to senior manager. I volunteered at Juma Radio as a broadcaster and became executive chair. I know what you're thinking. He didn't need any training to talk. Yet I did pick up producer and technical skills, and I led in very testing times. Arts and Culture, remember, had always given me a voice, from the street sounds of hip-hop, the fashions of the two-tone movement that turned me into a rude boy, and the films of Spike Lee, which provided education and entertainment. I travelled to visit the home of Dr. King and his birthplace, and to museums to see artefacts across the African diaspora. At Agema, we won many awards, including National Diversity Champions and Best Community Radio Station. We engaged the city and the community in the Black and Green project on the environment. Embracing the Swahili principles. Sometimes I work with people that I didn't always agree with. However, we came together to improve race relations in the city and innovate through the arts. On the 20th of January, 2009, I, along with 2 million others in Washington, D.C., witnessed the inauguration of President Barack Obama. Afterwards, I had an epiphany. At first, I pushed it away, but I couldn't get the voices out of my head. Tell their story, our story, your story. And so I began to chronicle the tale beyond that of the transatlantic trade in enslaved Africans to my parents' arrival here in Britain. I called it my American Odyssey from the Windrush to the White House, inspired by my global connections. This year is the 75th year of the Windrush generation's arrival in Britain at Tilbury Docks, London. It's also the 60th anniversary of the Bristol bus boycott. It's been an honour to celebrate and commemorate these brave pioneers who have changed the face of this nation. Carnivals, music, food, sporting success. Their work has been in the bedrock of British institutions. Dad gave 32 years service to London Underground, and my mum and many others worked in our great NHS. The brave men and women of the Bristol bus boycott not only broke the colour bar in Bristol, but they changed the laws through the 1965 Race Relations Act, allowing black and Asian drivers to drive the buses. And they were helped by Tony Benn. Today, the Equalities Act in Britain protects LGBTQ rights, protects maternity rights, age, gender, and disability discrimination. Intergenerational learning at the shoulder of its leaders, Paul Stevenson, Roy Hackett, and Guy Bailey, plus being nurtured by Leo Goodridge and Barbara Dettering, has been inspiring to me and proved invaluable. After I launched my book, I gave a talk at UWE Bristol. There, I found a home for my lived and learned experience that made sense of my life. Or, in academic terms, my autodidactic pedagogy. A dozen or so miles from where I had my educational epiphany, labouring underneath the Severn Bridge, I'm proud to educate future generations of storytellers such as Bernardine Evaristo, writers such as Gary Young, and historians such as David Olusoga, voices that were missing from the pages of my school books. You see, not everybody learns in the same way. Parents returning back to education tell me they do so with new vigour. Teaching people with neurodiverse needs means finding different tools to help them thrive. Inside each of you, I guarantee there's one more thing that you're good at. It's time to set it free. Are you ready to become the best you can be? Me and Mrs. Education are rubbing along together, still just fine. During lockdown, I improved my writing skills, undertaking playwriting and fiction courses. I came published in academia and poetry. I continue to grow from the feedback of my writing group as I battle to complete my first novel. My people-first beliefs are still part of my learned values as I empower my fantastic team, and together as a social enterprise, we amplify community cultural stories. I was back in the US this summer at my Uncle Clarence's funeral and consoling my aunt over the loss of two of her sons and dear friends. The loss of a close friend earlier this year made me realize how important mentors are. Sure, the honors the city, the university, and the nation have bestowed on me have been wonderful for a skinny black kid who left school without any qualifications. However, none of that would have been possible without the army of support from those who believed in me. From tutors who became mentors and now friends, and from my family across the globe. For I now know you're only as strong as your weakest link. I'll leave you with two final thoughts. Employers, remember, lived and learned experiences are a prized asset. And second chances, when you embark on your re-education, you'll find new people opening up doors to a galaxy of fresh opportunities. Statistics also say that upskilling leads to better pay, boosts your self-esteem, and improves your mental health. And always remember that your lived and learned experiences are your superpower, not your kryptonite. Thank you.